So without much ado, I would like to introduce the first panel. It's a very, very unique topic, and we had lots of discussions around which topic should cover, but we'll leave it to the moderator. The topic is on media for sustainable change. And we have got an exceedingly illustrious set of panelists, moderated by Mr. Rahul Dev, and the panelists are Rajjat, Barjatya, Srinivasan, Swamy, Srini, I hope I got that right, and Madhulika, Gupta. And so, if I could please request you all to come up and take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for an extremely esteemed panel, and I leave the stage with Rahul for taking this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Suman. Friends, media is in the dock everywhere. Wherever I go, and I'm sure those of my friends who belong to media in any capacity find themselves being in the dock and ask many questions and held responsible for much of what is wrong in the society. We sometimes find it difficult to carry the burden of expectations that society has from us, because we always fall short. Let me firstly define what the definition of media that I'm going to use, and what all it covers. Media does not mean news media alone. By media, we are going to talk about a universe which has about 4 to 5% maximum of news media, and then films, entertainment, the new media, social media, all the millions of websites and portals, and all the platforms, old or traditional or new, that are sending out messages that are consumed by people. All this is media. So when you ask questions or you speak to me, I represent only 4% of this media universe. 4 to 5. And let me also tell you, even within the television universe, and these are the guys who create these rules and tell us, they create the matrix also. Even within the Indian television matrix, news media, news television occupies about 8%. We sometimes don't know this, and we expect the news media to change the world, change the country, lead the country. So please remember and keep this larger picture in mind. How I perceive the media is, I will say in Hindi, media man banata hai. Media creates and shapes our consciousness. This is how I define and look at media. It shapes our desires, our lifestyles, our ways of looking, ways of relating not just with the world, but with ourselves, with our people, friends, family, society, country, issues. It creates opinions, that's the news media. It informs us, it incites us, it excites us, and sometimes it manages to inspire us also. It does all of those things. It damages as well as it builds. It contributes and it takes away. So, and we have a wide spectrum of this media universe present here. The topic is very interesting, yet very complicated. Media for sustainable change. We need to define quickly what is sustainable. What do we mean by sustainable? And we also need to quickly define what change are we talking about. Because change, we all know, is constant. Everything is changing all the time, from our bodies to the environment. There is a desirable change and there is an avoidable change. A damaging change and good change, good and bad change. So we can presume we are talking about can media be a player, contributor to sustaining good change? I hope that is what is meant. We have Mr. Swamy, who represents an extremely important critical agency or a part of this universe. He represents the advertising agency, which create at the demand of the sponsors, producers of goods and services who want to advertise. His community creates the messages, the content of advertising, whether in print, text, film, whatever. Madhulika represents and has worked with the producers, people who ultimately end up controlling and sponsoring the media. I represent this community which seems to be controlling a part of the media, but really doesn't, which is the weakest link, I would say. Yet, we are the public face of the media, at least in the news media. People who control us are sitting there. and Rajjat represents the film community, and I don't have to tell you what it means and how impactful and how influential it is, it has been, and will be. So, let me challenge my co-panelists, and I've been doing that since this morning. And I'm going to just provoke them, and then they are free to answer the way they want. I think in its totality, media has contributed to a higher, more informed human consciousness globally. But within that, after that, there's a lot that disturbs me about the media that I produce and I consume. And I find today that films, television, radio, advertising included, the issue is content. What is the impact of, what are the influences and impacts of different kinds of contents that we are consuming through all these media? To me, while it has grown, increased people's democratic consciousness, it has given people new dreams, new visions, new lifestyles, new aspirations, new ambitions, and a global consciousness. It has also given and sustained, and it promotes lifestyles, viewpoints, consumption and behavior patterns which are, in the ultimate analysis, unsustainable. If we talk of sustainability, we have to talk about sustainable consumption. Without sustainable consumption, there can be no sustainable development. But the media, all of us put together, what we end up doing is to promote unsustainable, infinite consumption, unnecessary consumption, damaging consumption. So, sustainability and consumption and our role as purveyors of role models and patterns of behavior and role models. This is the sort of canvas on which I would like all of us to respond, and I will start with the youngest among us, Rajjat Barjatya.
I think you're the youngest of the lot.
Well, thank you so much. I'll give you the honor first.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure being here. I come from the entertainment world. So it's a little different from media, of course allied. I come from the world where we produce content, and we do 4 kinds of content, whether it's feature films or television programming, music, or digital entertainment content. We come from that world where the content that we put out is having a huge impact on an Indian diaspora primarily across the world. So I don't think any of you here are not consumers of feature films or television shows or music or digital content also now, especially the youngsters. So I find myself in the dock very much like Rahulji said, where everyone talks of the objectification of women, etc., constantly. So yes, it is absolutely happening. And there are two sides of every coin. It depends on how you want to lead your life. So as a family, I am fortunate to be born in a company, in a family which has been at the forefront of Indian entertainment, wholesome family Indian entertainment since 1947. And since 1947, we have actually stood firm on our principles that we will produce films that we can watch with our family. Yes, it is a business. No denying it. We're not here for charity, at least not in the films we make, and not at the scale at which films are being produced today. Where a 100 crore budget, is quite common. The scales have increased. It is a business, but can you strike that balance? So we see a lot of Bollywood film producers succumbing to the lowest common denominator and making films which they perceive viewers in UP and Bihar are going to enjoy. Filled with item numbers and filled with violence and vulgarity. That's something we have stayed away from consciously, and we have still been able to survive. I actually say that we have been able to survive in the last 67 years. I think had we succumbed to commercial pressures, we could have been a far richer family. But I think we are far richer today in terms of reputation and goodwill and can sleep peacefully at night. One thing I want to say over here is there is another gentleman who has been able to strike that balance beautifully, and that's Rajkumar Hirani. He is somebody who actually made Gandhiji cool. So I have two kids, one is 10 and one is 5, and they know Gandhiji because of Lagero Munnabai. It's because a film of that sort was able to take the message of Gandhiji in a very cool manner, quote unquote cool manner. The same thing could have been done in a very preachy way. So in the entertainment world, whether it's films or television or music or digital, something preachy does not work. It has to be entertaining, and you have to be able to strike that middle path between being entertaining so that it's worth your 250 rupees at a multiplex or 30 minutes in front of a television. At the same time, you are conveying a message. So I think for us as a family, that middle path has been extremely important, and we constantly strive to achieve that middle path. Sometimes we don't, and our films fail. That's okay. But the big hits that whether it's a Maine Pyar Kiya or a Hum Aapke Hain Kaun or a Hum Saath Saath Hain, or even in a film called Dosti in 1964, a film called Saransh, a film called Dulan Bhai Jo Piya Man Bhai, Akhiyon Ki Jhorokon Se, Chichor, Nadiya Ke Paar. I can name lots of our films where I think we have been able to strike that middle path between entertainment being a business and entertainment being a medium where we can actually communicate values to the audience.
Thank you so much. I wish there was a possibility of within this format of question answer with the audience. It always speaks for better content at the end of it. Maybe if we all agree, we can do that. So please keep your questions ready. Chris, we are running behind time. Can we do that for 3-4 questions? All right. And now I come to Mr. Swamy. He brings a completely different perspective, which is realistic as well as extremely experiential. Mr. Swamy, I'll specify my query at least. Media as a whole, all of us put together, and within that, advertising, play a positive role in sustainability, in promoting sustainable practices.
I don't know whom to thank for having me here, but I think I want to thank generally the organizers, because I know there are many people behind organizing this wonderful, wonderful event. The topic has been debated amongst ourselves, whether media can promote sustainable change. And I have my own reservations given the commercial compulsions for media. And I was therefore saying that while in India media is very robust, we have probably the world's largest print media. We have kind of 70,000 publications being printed. We have 100 million being circulated every day. We have a very robust television platform. We have close to 700 channels beaming into India, probably seen by 500, 600 million people every day. We have close to 400 radio stations, beaming to close to 800, 830 cities. So there is no lack of media. But media, whether they can promote any development agenda, whether they will promote that in a sustained manner, has been something I'm very doubtful about. Because given their own compulsions to feed news, feed views, that is going to be giving them more viewership and readership, I really don't know whether they're going to be part of the sustainable campaign. There could be a Times of India who want to do 1 or 2 initiatives every year that may connect with their readers. Basically, they do those initiatives not with some fancy agenda, but basically with actually connecting with the readers and get them to be more relevant with them. And that's right. So it's principally a commercial objective that drives those decisions, and not necessarily a global feel-good, do-good objective. That's my personal view. Having said that, I have actually requested a part of IAA, and I'm president of International Editors Association, and part of IAA, I have requested the government to consider mandating 2% of space and time in print, television, radio, whatever, devoted to, developmental communication, and what that can be, what priorities it can take, and all that can be determined by the government, or they can even leave it to the publications and television channels and radio channels to determine what manner they want to support. At least there is some direction that actually can be available for the media owners to comply. And like there is a CSR requirement to give away 2% of profit, similarly we can get them to give 2% of the space and time. That's my view. There's few other things we do in the associations I'm involved, organizations I'm involved in. It was very difficult to get attention from media to even focus on the good work you do in some of the NGOs, institutions I run. For example, I run a healthcare institution called Hindu Mission Hospital. We do innovative things to get people's attention of the kind of work we do, at least get our name embedded in their skull, so that when they go to them for money, they're more liberal with their checkbook. We had, for example, successful cricketers walk down Mount Road saying, we call this Cricketers Walk for Charity. And so they are wearing our own T-shirts and walking down, and so hundreds of people walk behind them, and that gets into front page news and whatever. And hopefully then people see that there's some hospital trying to do good work, and of course there will be a couple of paragraphs in the hospital when you have news of that kind being carried. There's Nirmal somewhere here. Nirmal is not here. There's another speaker called NB Nirmal. I used to work with them in developing another program called Clap for Charity. Again, an event where you clap continuously for, I think the guy clapped for 3 days continuously to get into Guinness Book of World Record. And that was an event that was actually flagged off by us under our platform. And so we got, Clap for Charity, charity was for us. And he kept on clapping, gone to Guinness Book, and I got my money. So basically to get attention. Thank you. So we need to look at innovative things to get news, because news do not want to carry stuff. If I stand in front of press conference to talk about the great work and we do in Hindu Mission Hospital or Gurukulam, whatever, they don't give a damn because they think that's because to them it is not a newsworthy for the readers to read, and therefore they are less interested in devoting space or time for that. They're quite happy if I give a Hindu a free ad or whatever, they run it for me free. That's maybe 4 or 5 times a year. That's okay. Because to them it's no brain work, somebody's giving them something, they run it. So out of goodwill, they carry that. So, for example, we also had informed the schools where we had Arogya run. We said we got some 2,000 students together with again giving T-shirts and Arogya run, importance of health and Arogya, and ask them to again be part of a promotion plan. So I'm saying try to do various things. For school, for example, every year we have something called Heritage program where we get lots of people to come and talk about Indian heritage and try and get that covered in media. And lots of events we do in the school also to, unless we do events, news will never get carried by media. News has to be newsworthy. The event has to be newsworthy. And that's something we learn pretty hard. And we, because we do all this, we now have a hospital which has been only funded by public and through corporate donations. We have 220 beds. We have it's a tertiary care hospital. We have top-notch doctors working there. We can take care of the heart, the spine, the lungs, the cancer, whatever. It's multidisciplinary. Anyway, I was looking at another dimension whether media is really supportive of development agenda and development change. I got my colleagues to study last 1 month of December, the front pages of the Times of India, Bombay, Hindustan Times, Delhi, and the Hindu Madras front page. And to scan for news that talks about health, women, children, civic subjects, and things I have, yeah, that's it, I think, poverty. And I said, please tell me what is the attention that top papers in this country are devoting to so-called developmental issues. I don't know if that's good news or bad news. 2% of the space was devoted by Times of India for these development items in Bombay. Hindustan Times share was a little better, 2.3%, and Hindu was a lot better, comparatively speaking, at 5.6% on this. 5.6. I'm saying this I don't know if it's good or bad, whether it's adequate or not adequate, but personally speaking, if you want to use media to fundamentally change the way we think and behave and all that, this 2% is nothing. It's talking about very tiny space, a whole month devoted. If I had gone that research done across the paper, I don't believe the result will be significantly different. Maybe it may be another 0.5%, 1% more, but it won't be significantly different. So, whether the media will come to your help, I doubt it. But should we stop trying? I don't think so. And I'm hoping that there will be some mandate that will be available from the government to get the media to devote space and time, so that with the space and time, at least we can do some focused communication. If you mandate media to carry 5% of the story editorially, we don't know whether the story is going to be slanted, whether it's going to be leading up to a long whole, whether it's going to be disjointed communication. So it's better to have a pre-prepared communication sent to media, so that I think that over time there is a shift in attitude, minds of people. Attitudinal change takes a long time, a lot of effort, and I think it can only happen through some government mandating something to happen if you want the cooperation in media. There are some things that you can't erase. This kind of perception is one of them. I'll tell you why. Just last month, International Advertising Association released a research study on depiction of women in Indian advertising and whether there is a significant shift in the way the planners and executors are advertising. Okay, the mindset shift in planners and executors of advertising. We spoke to professionals, general manager and above in marketing companies. We spoke to creative directors and above, and senior people in television media. I'm talking about relating to advertising. You'll be surprised that well, not everyone, there is a very high percentage, 88% of people saying that women in advertising are depicted in a manner which is very respectful. I'm talking about last 1.5 years, very respectful. As a matter of fact, they see a considerable change in the way they've been depicted, and they are very happy with that this is done in a manner which is actually going to enthuse the future generation to show respect. You may have accused advertising of doing depicting women crudely, rudely, whatever, maybe 5 years ago. You can't say the same thing today. They've completely conducted themselves honorably the last few years, and it's reflected in the research that got released just last month.
That's good news. Thank you. Madhulika ji, you have a very varied experience from responsibility, teaching social responsibility to corporates and to driving the agenda also. Your views, I mean, firstly, can, in its totality, not just the news media, and I must remind all of us that we are not just about newspapers and news television. The total media, can we really sustain change, good change?
Okay, I have a pretty broad perspective on this, Rahulji. Okay, first of all, I think the word sustainable has brought in a twist in this topic because I think perhaps what we were intending to gauge was media for social change. And sustainability is really a factor of evolution, and media is not driving the evolution, but conveying the evolution, contributing to being the aggregator, as Srijit had mentioned during lunch. But it's a role that several stakeholders play to finally arrive at what the media content gets used and gets projected. I personally believe that today, even I am seeing as an individual, without any statistical inferences being drawn or any numbers being there, I am very clearly seeing in the last 1.5 to 2 years definite change being depicted in content, since you wanted to talk about content more than other parts of the media. And this is not news content. In fact, news content is sometimes aggravates me enormously sometimes today, but it's other than news content. And you're smiling very knowingly, I think, Srijit. But other content aside from news, which is really 80% of content that's being consumed by a larger number of people. Again, I think if we were to see those who are consuming news, per se, maybe a much lesser percentage of the population than those who are consuming non-news oriented content, my assumption, because I mean there are a lot more people who are interested in universal content rather than just newsworthy content. And I'm seeing definite change being depicted over there. So my belief is that media is definitely in the path and being utilized, but to what degree it is being utilized is still a question mark. How do they become responsible for it is also a question mark. But there are some stellar examples that I would really mention. For example, Satyamev Jayate. Yeah, there's no disputing that it had the entire population, and it was perhaps the only content program serial which was being aired on more than one channel. There was no exclusivity being tied up to it. It was not only on Star World, which is where it first started, Star Plus, it was on Doordarshan, it was on various others. So it became more and more universally appealing and acceptability. There was a factor of entertainment, but there was a huge factor of social change. Subjects that we were not talking about were being talked about. So that was one. 5 years ago, I was mentioning one other example to Rahul Jivan during our discussions, which inspired me to action immediately that very same evening that I saw the episode, which was a Toyota sponsored content, but it was about solar lamps being distributed through NDTV's channel. They were raising the funds to make this happen across several villages. Yes, they also had an element of a celebrity supporting it, but I think the celebrity came at much less the commercial rates than they would normally charge. Zero. There you are. So he knows it better. I was told less. I'm happy to hear it was zero. So there is content like that. Then you see today in terms of the serials and the depiction of women that you're speaking about, Rahul. Today I'm finding a lot of change. There is, it's a reflection of what's happening in the society. I'm not saying it's good or bad. The actual social change which is happening and getting reflected is also in terms of, the way marital relationships are playing out today in society. They're being reflected on in serials and the way the characterizations are being written of women. But I also tend to agree, again, this is from what I have seen, that the 20 years ago and 15 years ago when I was in advertising, and when we debated how women are being portrayed, we had exactly the same perceptions that you spoke about. But in the last 1.5 to 2 years, I'm seeing a definite change. But I still have issues. I still have issues with products. I still have issues with the stakeholders who are performing in this entire universe of media. For example, why should products like Fair and Lovely still be there? Yeah. I mean, is that positive social change to remove it, or is that not positive social change to remove it? Is it about, is it about pure commercialization, or, it begs to question, it raises those questions. For example, if we look at two other examples which have happened over several years, is that the tobacco industry cannot advertise. They were stopped several years ago. They simply cannot advertise. So there is a government hand or a government policy that came about because of a social outcry and people's outcry and health outcry. But there were several stakeholders who made that happen. I mean, there were people like average people like us who were anti-smoking. There were organizations like WHO that were anti-smoking, etc. But eventually it came to it. Yes, I would still wonder why they're still being allowed to manufacture, but that's a different matter. Yeah. Similarly with liquor, can such policies not be put in place for other things? And that is going to drive, that would also drive the commercial motivations for media. It would also drive commercial motivations for the manufacturers and for other stakeholders in media. And then working together, it could definitely be sustainable, the change. I do believe, this is a slight tangent to the content, but I have a strong, let me say not yet strong, but an evolving view on the topic, which is that at some stage, I think media houses have become businesses and corporations more than what they were originally or traditionally known to be as, as the tool for carrying information and communication. And but even then they were supposed to be designed for opinion. Sorry? Yeah, for social change, absolutely, towards us. And would have been sustainable change, but somewhere along the way, perhaps after 91, policy changes, these things also happened. Today, is there a case? Would media feel socially responsible in some way if they were to start looking at themselves as media and not as large corporations who have no responsibility towards society, but today they have great responsibility towards purely shareholder value and not stakeholder value, and to generate more and more revenues and generate more and more profits? I mean, it's an evolving question that's been coming in to mind for me. So to address your point, I think on several areas and several facets, there is definitely scope for sustainability of the change that can be driven by media and through media. But I think it's a responsibility of several stakeholders, including advertising and content producers and people like us who support or become activists about it.
Thank you, Madhulika ji. Rajat, I want to ask you, since I think I may be wrong, but films influence people's attitudes.
Yes.
Fashion. They decide what is fashionable, what is in, what is the desirable way of dressing, behaving, consuming, eating, conducting themselves to the large extent. Are filmmakers in collectivity, not rarities like your company and you, your family, do they really want to face this responsibility? Are they aware of what are they doing? Can something be done about it?
This is a question I'm asked all the time. It depends completely on the filmmaker. As someone who produces feature films, we have the responsibility and accountability to shape the thinking of an entire generation. Let's shape it positively. That's the approach we have always taken. Because of the stakes involved now, film producers have begun to look at the lowest common denominator and ask themselves a simple question: what masala do I put into the feature film which will drive audiences to a cinema? And I need two things. I need 250 rupees from their pocket and 3 hours undivided captive attention in a cinema hall. That's what I need. What do I need to give the audience to get these two things? So not everybody has the resolve to strike a middle path. I'm very certain that we cannot be preachy. There have been some attempts at feature films getting very preachy. They do not work. You will not take out 250 rupees and 3 hours to watch something preachy. But a middle path does work. So many examples come to my mind. I gave just one of Lagera Munna Bhai. But when you think of dyslexia, you think of Tare Zameen Par. You have a great film like Lagan. Many of the films we have made, a film like Vivah, was I think very socially responsible. Even a film like Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, with all the item numbers. For me, a Didi Tera Devar Diwana is an item number with a wonderful looking Madhuri Dixit. Who wouldn't want her? But at the same time, very, very responsible in terms of a feature film. So when you walk out of the cinema, you don't carry that with you. You carry many of the positive virtues and values that are portrayed in the feature film. But I have to admit, sir, that filmmaking has become a business like television and many other things. But can we strike the middle path? One more example I want to give. I happen to be a founder member of Baba Ramdev's ashram. Now, good or bad, don't judge me on that. But he has used media so effectively. I don't think 7-8 years ago, there was as much awareness in the common man, not you and me. You and I are not the common man. There wasn't so much awareness in the common man about yoga. But today, in a bus,
Ayurveda.
And you will.
And Ayurveda.
And Ayurveda, absolutely, absolutely. What Baba Ramdev has been able to bring through, only one way, through the media. The number of people who watch him every day on television is far greater than the number of people who meet him at his shivers, where he speaks for all this. So I think it's how you use the media. Let media not use you. Can you use the media?
There's a book written by a professor called Dan Ariely. Book is titled Predictably Irrational. Okay, and it talks about human behavior and how we as individuals behave in a funny manner. And I give 3-4 examples of what experience he has done. His book is full of examples, but some of the examples. The college, canteen, hostel, there's dormitory, and you leave a Coke can with your name written on it or whatever, because it's a common refrigerator, and that Coke can will necessarily get lost, will get consumed by somebody else. Okay. You go to a conference like this, you have lots of pads, pens lying around the conference room. Okay, without batting an eyelid, few copies of pads and pens will go into your suitcase or whatever. That's, but batting an eyelid, many people do that. And it goes on to many examples. For example, in Harvard Business School, when students were asked to mark themselves for the questions they've answered, they cheat and mark for themselves more marks. So the point that he's making is, look, people are predictably irrational, and when they can get away with some kind of a small theft, they will do that. And he also estimates that corporate thefts arising out of wrong, excessive travel vouchers and what things get lost from the office and all that, is estimated in America alone $600 billion. Okay, and further goes on to say the money lost through robbery, burglary, auto thefts and all that is only $2.6 billion in America. So $2.6 billion was $600 billion. You can do the math. Anyway, then there is another study I came across, which is spiritual audit for corporate America. In that study, 200 practicing CEOs participated, and there was a serious correlation between performance of the company, okay, and the spirituality quotient of the CEO. If the company CEO is spiritually inclined, he is more honest, more truthful, he does what he says he will do, and therefore the performance of the company is better. And so there is some lesson for us in this Vedic wisdom for modern business, and what our subject media for sustainable change. I'm saying if we can start promoting the concept that spirituality is good for modern business, okay, is there some way we can get together, even through social media, start this thing and maybe start writing blogs and all kinds of things? Maybe slowly start getting the sticky factor that's required to get, and hopefully make a change. Obviously, these changes don't take place overnight, but hopefully over next 5-10 years, there is a serious connection that gets established between spirituality and governance.
Thank you. Thank you for that very profound intervention. I've always wondered whether it was possible to mix spiritualism with journalism. I am interested in both. And I don't know still whether it's possible. Maybe Swamiji Radhanaji can show us the way, but it's very difficult. But because what journalists pursue all the time and what spiritualism demands are apparently, on the face of it, conflicting directions. Madhulika ji, given the compulsions that Mr. Swamy has talked about, commercial compulsions, you have talked about them, and there is a bigger compulsion that I see, and I put to you, the compulsion of following the human nature, which is to me the largest compulsion before the media, because no matter, even if we have a masterpiece of a wholesome content, whether it's story or an article or a film or a TV program, extremely serious, wholesome, good, but we cannot thrust it down the throat of the audience unless it's interesting. And what interests at the mass level, what interests the humankind is the stuff that masala is made of. So the lowest common denominator actually is the largest segment of the audience, whether it's the audience or the reader. And I find media following human nature, in that human nature goes for something, for the spectacle, for the spectacular, for the colorful, for the interesting, even if it's slightly dangerous, for the fun, for the what we call sexy and cool and macho and violent and melodramatic. Now, these are the very qualities that at the deeper level create a disturbed human consciousness. But media has to follow these basic, very basic human traits. Can we go beyond it? Can we challenge it and yet be sustainable ourselves? You talked of the sustainability of the media itself.
Actually, there's no clear answer to this question at all. And I don't think I'm qualified enough to address the question either. Saying, can I? No, I don't believe it entirely that way. But I do feel that, sustaining media itself is an issue of everybody who is engaged with media getting into the act of making sure that content and programming is whether it's content in print or whether it's content on television or cinema, is not only reflective of the social change, but is also influencing of social change. And it's really with that perspective in mind, I also believe that at some stage, it is important for viewers, when you look at viewers or when you look at the print audience, and when I talk about stakeholders, I mean people, average people, and what is the kind of lessons, what is the kind of teaching we are providing to our generations. That is going to make a difference. I'm talking about what kind of teachings we are providing to our generations, because the social views, norms, the taste for tamasha, the taste for sensation, all of that is also growing. It's partly nature, but it's also a lot to do with the kind of education we are receiving. What is the kind of social goods or not so goods that we are imbibing, importing from global media as well? And what is the kind of support system that we're providing at home? What is the kind of spiritual guidance, if I may be at liberty to use that term here, we are providing to the children, so that at some stage they are in a position to make the assessment in their own minds as to how to create that balance? Sure, enjoy a scene, enjoy something, but how do you also start to assess, analyze, and accept what might be good in the long run, and how to differentiate the good from the not so good? And that sustainability, I think, is going to come when we see changes happening in our social upbringing itself. It's to do with human nature, very rightly pointed out.
Thank you so much. And I think we have overshot the time, so we'll end this session. I'll just end with one last comment that I think it is within the power of the media, specifically news media, to set the national agenda and to drive the agenda and brings an issue on the national agenda. That power, if properly used, can be a huge game changer and force multiplier, and maybe other media can also fall in line. So that is a responsibility we have. We must accept it and do something about it, and I hope we will. Thank you so much, all the panelists, and for you to listen.
There is no story. My life is not a Bollywood pot boiler. No, I mean, how things change, and what's important is how you react to that change. So I was 36. I'm 40 right now. I was 36. Life was going very well, and I was not philanthropically inclined at all. I would have run away from a conference like this. And on Christmas 2010, I was told, you have leukemia. It's completely out of the blue. Now here I also want to add that unlike most other film families that you may have heard of, in our case, we're a joint family. We're 16 family members who live in the same house, common kitchen, common dining room. So it's absolutely a joint family that you see in a film like Hum Saath Saath Hain, for example, yeah, without the actresses. So when, no alcohol of any kind, no tobacco of any kind. We don't even allow tobacco and alcohol in our films. We get lots of requests really for brand integration or product placement. But there are some things that we do not do which do not go with our values, even though they may bring in a lot of money. So I was very surprised, and I kept asking myself that, why has a person like me got leukemia? And there is no reason for it. It's a gene mutation at the end of the day. So I was on chemotherapy. I was at Bridge Candy Hospital for 6 months undergoing chemotherapy. I'm absolutely fine. I had lost 30 kilos, not a single hair on my head or my eyebrows. It's all come back. So I'm actually 4 years old right now. And 2 things came out of this experience. So again, it's how you react to an experience. 2 things came out. My daughter was 9 years old last year when she published her book. So she's actually India's youngest published author. Her name is Kashvi. A book is called Lost in the Woods. It's a kid's adventure story. And it's a book she began writing when I was in hospital to cheer me up. Because I was in quarantine and she couldn't meet me for about 6 months. And she would send me stories and poems and these kind of things to cheer me up. So I actually told her, I said, you really write well. And she has been writing for a while, but I said, you write very well. Put this together into a larger story and I will publish it. And that's what she did. So I had no option but to fulfill my promise as well. The book was released about a year ago, and she's actually India's youngest published author. So we've done about 5,000 copies of the book. Every single rupee goes to Rajshri Foundation, which is the second thing that happened because of leukemia. There was a strong urge while I was recovering that I have to thank the Lord. I have to give back. And I don't know where it came from. I want to live in a country in my lifetime. And this I'm thinking when I'm actually in between life and death. So I'm thinking that in my lifetime, I want to live in a country where no one goes hungry. So it was a very bold statement, at that time. I still don't know how I'm going to get there. I know I will. That's for sure. I know I will. So we began Rajshri Foundation in a very, very small way with, about a year ago with 40 school children whom we serve evening snacks to. So it was an experiment really. Today it's grown to over 2,000 children in Mumbai's night schools who are served food every day, because of which we've seen dramatic results. So schools, these are all BMC schools where kids work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and still have the resolve to come and study at night. These are really kids who are hungry to study and who are hungry over here because they've worked the entire day. And this food actually has helped them so much that schools where they've had 0 pass percentage in the last 30 years, 40 years, this year when we began this Food with a Purpose program, have got a 60 to 70% pass percentage. So this little food has had a dramatic impact, and I can really well imagine what Anamrita and ISKCON at a larger scale is doing is absolutely phenomenal. So this is my little potboiler of a story where I think it's not the cancer, but it's the response to that cancer that actually gives me a lot of confidence today. I still remember my oncologist was Dr. Suresh Advani, who was administering the chemotherapy. I told him cancer chose the wrong guy. We're going to beat this shit. And we did. Yeah. Thank you guys for inviting me here.